Well, you see, that's the whole point, is the word lie needs to be defined. Sometimes not telling the truth, all of the truth, is your moral obligation. And you have a moral obligation to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth at all times to anyone who asks you. You would say, that's not in the Bible. The moral thing to do is for me not to tell you. You ain't getting nothing out of me. Those issues relating to whether you have a moral obligation to tell the whole truth at all times to everyone, that needs to be answered by pointing out you don't. You do not owe them the truth. And see, that's another fallacy. People run around thinking life is just, and they run around thinking you owe the truth to everyone. You don't. That's what the Bible teaches.
That was from Morey's available audio tape from the REF, catalog number J54.
If someone tells you ahead of time that they don't believe that it's wrong to lie, can you believe them for anything they say after that? If someone tells you they believe it's all right to lie if they get in a pinch, how can you believe them anyway? At any time.
What I want to touch on first, just briefly, Gary, and I think you have the documents to deal with this. He says that we funded, that we live far beyond our means and our paychecks, and, we lined our pockets for personal gain, stole money and all this stuff, like we were like Judas. But we purchased stock in Gulf Oil. This is one of his charges in the letter. Okay? Do you have anything to deal with this Gulf Oil accusation?
Right. Basically, back effective July 1st, 1985, Gulf Oil was merged into Chevron USA Incorporated. So Gulf Oil doesn't even exist.
You might want to hold that up for the camera. You've got an official document there.
This is a certification of merger. And so he's accusing us of buying Gulf Oil stock, which doesn't even exist. And this was...
and that's 1985?
Yeah, this company was bought out by Chevron back in 1985. So Gulf Oil doesn't even exist.
And it's even in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania where they're making the accusations.
Right.
They don't even know what's going on in their backyard.
Right. That's apparently where the company was incorporated. So how he comes up with saying that we embezzle money and use it to buy Gulf Oil stock is beyond me. It just seems like they're just grasping for anything under the sun.
And Larry, subsequent to that letter you wrote to Slavitskas, which Slavitskas obviously is just a pawn in the hands of Perez to turn his mail over to Perez for him to answer for him like Perez supposedly was doing there. I wrote to the Pennsylvania State Board of Accountancy because I never did believe that this man Slavitskas was a CPA. I phoned him and he would not tell me over the telephone, and he just dodged around. And I tried to get him to let me fax him something, and he said, well, his fax machine is not plugged in right, and so he fiddled around trying to supposedly get it set up, and he never would get his fax machine set up so I could fax him something. And then when I tried to call him again, I couldn't get through. So, but the time that I did get to talk to him, he would not affirm anything about himself. He's just talking around, just evading. So I later wrote him and asked him, well, no response. So we write to the State Board of Pennsylvania and asked them.
You have the document there, the official document.
And asked them about Mr. Slavitskas. And this is their answer, which was sent to me just recently. And what that says is that they have no record of Joseph Slavitskas as being a CPA in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, yet, that's what Morey had claimed in this mail out here. He says that he had the, right here, the REF.
You're talking about the September 1995 REF vindicated letter.
This is the man Morey was referring to. He says, we now have been completely vindicated by an independent CPA. And this is the man that they represent to be the accountant. This is the man that Perez told you that he had hired.
That's correct.
And so they were going on this man's so-called testimony as a CPA. Well, regardless of the fact that he didn't have any right to determine crime or anything like that, I mean, he couldn't accuse somebody of embezzlement, or he had no power to do that. Yet, despite that, this man has no business even calling himself CPA. Morey has no business or calling him a CPA. That is a fraudulent claim, because that is only something a man has a right to call himself based on the fact that the State Board of Accountancy of Pennsylvania had approved of him according to their standards of what qualifies as a certified public accountant. And the fact that they fraudulently mail this out in interstate transmission just further adds to the crime that I think of their making this accusation against y'all for the sake of inducing people to send them money. In other words, it's a clear fraudulent extortion case so far as I can see.
Morey said, is there any other business? You know, and I said, well, I'd like to bring up the point about all the money that the REF owes me.
And they owed over $30,000.
Yeah, well, between my brother and myself, it was $32,000 something.
And why did they owe this? Give us a little background on that.
Why did they owe the money?
Right.
Okay. Well, I'll start right here while Gary looks up some information. For years, as I was setting up this Research and Education Foundation to build up into something bigger, I've been keeping a ledger of expenses of what the REF would pay me back someday, because Morey had said, you know, I could put some of my own money into this thing and then I get reimbursed later when there's enough money to pay me back.
Well, the point I want you to bring out is the fact that Morey was fully aware and fully approved of the fact that you were putting your money into these purchases of needed equipment, and he had expressed the fact that this would be repaid to you.
Oh, of course. In fact, I've even got one letter on file where I had loaned him $3,000 for his Islam Unveiled book, and he had promised me in that letter he would pay me back.
I mean, now they're saying, well, this was never authorized and all this kind of garbage. Well, the fact is you had an oral agreement with Morey, and you were fully informing him all along the way of what the responsibility was.
Right, I was keeping this ledger with all the records of expenses made. I had my receipts. I still have my receipts to this day, and I've got the canceled checks. If I put it on my Discover or Visa card, I kept those receipts for documentation and record. And it was just for REF purchases. A lot of it at first was for postage, just to do REF mailouts, because we didn't have enough money in the REF account to pay for mailouts, so I had to pay it out of my own pocket. And so there's just pages and pages of REF expenses for all kinds of things.
So this added up over a period of like about 4 or 5 years to 30-something thousand dollars.
From 1990 to pretty close to the end, I believe, of 1992. I'd have to look at the dates on here. Yeah, 1992. Right, 92. And pretty much up to the end of 92
but now, Larry,
was where most of this expense
happened. Now, here's another point we want to make absolutely clear and emphatic. This information that you're showing here has been acknowledged by Morey as his debt and the debt of REF.
Oh, of course.
On his official income tax.
Now let's take a moment to show this to the viewers, because see, now anyone can write a ledger like this and they can always claim I just made up all these figures. Of course, like I've said, I've got receipts, I've got canceled checks, I've got everything to match up with these records. But for information on this, you just mentioned the IRS, and if you can speak for a moment and cover me while I find it, I'll dig it out. Do you have it right there, Gary?
Gary's got it right here.
Thank you.
Now, this is the form that's required to be filed. It's 990EZ, and the government requires this to be returned, or this form to be filed as a return of an organization that's exempt from income tax.